It's 14:37 CST on the 19th of September 2025. In the South China Sea, near the Spratly Islands, the USS Ronald Reagan suddenly picks up multiple unknown tracks. Alarms blare. Sailors sprint to battle stations, sealing hatches and loading magazines. On the flight deck, F-35C pilots race to their jets as deck crew wave them forward. The Aegis screens flash red. A DF-21D plunges from the upper atmosphere while more contacts bloom along the coast. Set condition 1. The captain orders. Decoys, chaff, and jammers spin up as the carrier turns to narrow its profile. Catapults hiss. A pair of F-35C blast into a trembling sky. Data links locked and encrypted. Interceptors leap from an escort. Contrails carving white scars. A bright bloom marks a hit, but more tracks remain. Comms crackle. For a heartbeat, the picture drops. Jamming bites, then returns. Steel decks vibrate. The next minutes will decide if this carrier survives or vanishes beneath contested waters. In the South China Sea, shipping lanes cut through one of the busiest stretches of ocean on the planet. Oil tankers, container ships, and fishing fleets all thread these waters every hour. That constant flow fuels factories, fills stores, and keeps daily life running back home. To secure that lifeline, the USS Ronald Reagan and her strike group patrol here, tasked with making sure commerce moves unchallenged. But China claims almost all of these waters. From fortified outposts on reefs and artificial islands, the People's Liberation Army watches, challenges, and pushes back. They roll out ballistic missiles, hypersonic weapons, and electronic jammers designed for one purpose: to make U.S. carriers turn away. If they succeed, the consequences ripple worldwide. Insurance rates spike. Shelves go empty. Allies lose faith. A retreat here would signal that Beijing controls not just the sea, but the rules of trade itself. That's why the Reagan sails in harm's way. Her objective is clear: hold the line, no matter the cost. Thousands of sailors aboard understand what's at stake, not just their own lives, but the credibility of American power. Every radar ping, every missile warning carries a weight beyond the steel walls of their ship. Right now, that weight has never felt heavier. The opening salvos are already in the air. The clash is no longer theory, it's happening in real time. The question is simple and brutal. Can U.S. defenses hold against China's missiles, jammers, and submarines? And for you watching, if you believe America can stand firm, press 1 inch the comments. If you think China's arsenal tips the balance, press 9. Don't forget to hit subscribe, because what comes next will push this fight even further. 14:42 CST. The Reagan sensors scream with fresh warnings. Multiple missiles inbound, some ballistic, some sea skimming. The first line of defense responds instantly. From the cruiser escorting nearby, SM-3 interceptors roar upward, climbing fast to meet the DF-21D plunging from the stratosphere. A white bloom marks the collision, but it's only one threat down. Seconds later, the Reagan's Aegis locks onto another wave, this time a spread of cruise missiles launched from a Type 055 destroyer. The order comes: engage. Engage. Vertical launch cells crack open and standard missiles streak into the sky, contrails slashing across the horizon. Each one is a gamble hit, and the ship lives, miss, and steel meets fire. On deck, F-35C clear the bow one after another, catapults hissing under the strain. Their mission: intercept what the ship cannot. Pilots climb hard into the blinding sun, their radars scanning low and wide. Contact, bearing 090, closing fast. One calls. Sidewinders leave his wing, chasing a low-flying cruise missile skimming the waves. A fireball erupts, the sea swallowing the wreckage. But for everyone destroyed, another shows on radar. Coordination becomes everything. The Reagan links with her escorts, sharing tracks second by second to avoid gaps. Copy, I've got the southern lane. A destroyer calls over encrypted net. Explosions dot the horizon, each one a fleeting relief. In the Combat Information Center, sailors grip headsets, eyes fixed on glowing screens. They know the odds China launched to overwhelm, not just to hit. Then comes another layer of attack. Electronic jamming thickens. Radar screens fuzz with static. Comms distort, voices warping. Say again, crackles through the net. For a breathless moment, the Reagan is blind. The crew feels it. The fight is now hand-to-hand. Machine against machine. Signal against signal. Yet through the haze, a Tomahawk leaves the Reagan's escort, firing not defensively but offensively, arcing toward a Chinese radar site on a reef. One strike to claw back vision. One strike to show the fight cuts both ways. The horizon burns. The opening round has begun, and both sides are already blooded. 1450 CST. The first wave is barely contained when the second arrives faster, lower, and more coordinated. Several Chinese cruise missiles slip through the outer defenses, weaving past interceptors. The Reagan adjusts course by just a few degrees, a subtle shift that makes targeting harder and forces attackers into tighter angles. On the deck, close-in weapon systems spin up, barrels tracking like watchful eyes. F-35C already airborne dive in again, chasing threats that streak just above the waves. One missile explodes in a blinding flash. Another splits into decoys, confusing radars and pilots alike. Multiple contacts unable to confirm. A voice shouts over the net. The pressure climbs with every second. Inside the Combat Information Center, sailors sweat under red battle lights. Screens fill with clutter from electronic jamming. Comms lag, then snap back. The crew leans harder on encrypted links, piecing together fragments of the fight. Every decision comes down to seconds. Fire too early, and the ship wastes missiles. Fire too late, and steel takes the hit. The enemy knows it. Chinese destroyers push closer, launching yet another wave. Torpedoes ripple from beneath the surface. Type 093 submarines now in play. Sonobuoys splash into the water, listening for movement in the deep. Helicopters scramble, dropping depth charges in desperate arcs. The sea itself turns hostile, hiding threats both above and below. Then a shock. One cruise missile evades all intercepts, skimming just feet above the ocean. CIWS guns erupt, spitting tracers into the darkening sky. The roar shakes the deck as sailors brace for impact. At the last instant, the missile detonates in a blossom of fire destroyed barely a mile out. Cheers erupt, but only for a moment. Everyone knows the line nearly broke. Damage control teams sprint with hoses and foam, ready to rush below if heat sensors trip. Medics ready stretchers. This is the knife's edge of modern warfare, seconds from survival or disaster. So here's the question. If you think the Reagan's crew can keep holding back this storm, press 1 inch the comments. If you believe China's relentless waves will eventually break through, press 9 and subscribe now, because the next twist will push both sides into uncharted territory. 1457 CST. Just as the Reagan steadies after the near miss, a new threat appears smaller, faster, harder to track. Chinese forces unleash DF-17 hypersonic glide vehicles from inland launchers. Unlike earlier missiles, these don't follow predictable arcs. They skip and dive through the atmosphere, twisting paths that strain radar and reaction times. Hypersonics inbound, flashes across the command center. Even one hit could cripple the carrier. The commander orders, bring the laser online. On the forward deck, the experimental directed energy weapon hums to life. A flare blooms one hypersonic destroyed mid-air. Another beam cuts across the sky, vaporizing a second. Cheers rise, but no one relaxes. The system is new, untested under fire. Below the surface, Type 093 submarines press their attack. Torpedo wakes surge toward the carrier. Helicopters drop depth charges in frantic arcs, while destroyers sweep with sonar. Explosions thud underwater, shock waves rocking the formation. There is no safe direction arcs above, hunters below. Then the twist deepens. Electronic warfare spikes again, not just jamming, it's a cyber strike. Consoles freeze, screens flicker. For 30 seconds, the Reagan systems grind under assault. Sailors scramble to reroute power, reboot defenses, isolate compromised nodes. The ship lurches, defenses dulled. Backup drills snap into motion. Pilots switch to line-of-sight comms and relay targets by voice. The captain grips the rail. Hold the line! Lasers fire again. CIWS roar. Sub-hunters chase in the deep. Every system, every sailor, stretched to the limit. This is no longer just defense, it's survival. 15.5 CST. The sky and sea converge into chaos. The last and heaviest wave of Chinese firepower closes in cruise missiles, hypersonics, and torpedoes all at once. For the Reagan's crew, it's the breaking point. CIWS guns, thunder, spitting walls of tracers that light up the dusk. Each burst rips the air, cutting down missiles skimming only yards above the waves. F-35C streak through the clouds, launching sidewinders in rapid succession. One missile vanishes in a fireball. Another keeps coming, forcing a pilot to fire his last shot before pulling away on empty racks. On the deck, sailors brace as the carrier lurches into a hard turn, trying to present the narrowest profile. Lasers lock on again, beams invisible but deadly. One hypersonic shatters, scattering molten fragments across the sea. Another dives lower, slipping through the arc of defense. CIWS rakes it, tearing it apart just short of impact. The ship shakes under the shockwave, spray blasting over the bow. Below, destroyers battle the lurking submarines. Torpedoes hiss toward the formation, only to meet depth charges exploding in thunderous columns. The ocean bucks, as if alive. Waves pounding the carrier's hull. Every sailor feels it. This is the knife-edge moment. Then the nightmare. A missile breaks through the defensive wall. The Reagan's crew watches it close, seconds from impact. Damage control teams sprint toward likely strike zones, fire gear at the ready. The CIWS takes its final shot. Tracers converge. A blinding flash target destroyed, a heartbeat before it hits. The ship rocks violently, but the carrier still floats. Smoke trails fade. Silence follows the storm. The horizon, once alive with streaks of fire, slowly clears. Sailors collapse against bulkheads, exhausted but alive. On the net, status calls stabilize. Power holding, propulsion steady, flight ops intact. All stations report ready. They know they've faced one of the fiercest barrages in modern naval history and held. And now it's your call. If you believe the Reagan's defense has proven U.S. resolve, press 1" the comments. If you think China's relentless pressure shows this fight is far from over, press 9. Either way, subscribe now because the aftermath of this clash may be even more explosive than the battle itself. 15:30 CST. The Reagan still floats, scarred but intact. Her crew breathes again, though every face shows exhaustion. The sea around them tells the story. Oil slicks spread from shattered missiles. Smoke columns mark where intercepts turned fire into foam. Above, F-35C circle low. Fuel nearly gone. Their pilots silent with the weight of what just happened. Result: the carrier survives. But survival came at enormous cost. Hundreds of missiles, drones, torpedoes, and hypersonics were unleashed in less than an hour. Each one cost China far less to launch than the US spent to stop. A billion-dollar defensive shield consumed by waves of cheaper firepower. For Washington, it proves defense can work, but also exposes the grim math of modern war. Strategically, the message cuts both ways. Allies see that America still holds the line, even under the fiercest assault. But they also see the pressure rising, the scale of resources needed to keep seas open. Beijing watches too, learning from every failed strike, adjusting tactics for the next round. Hours later, limited Tomahawk strikes hit command nodes on Hainan meant to warn, not widen the war. On the Reagan, sailors patch steel, reset systems, and prepare to fight again. There is no illusion that this was the last wave. Intelligence suggests more mobile launchers inland, more subs at sea, more jammers waiting to strike. The enemy adapts. The crew knows the next attack could be bigger, sharper, deadlier. For now, the sea lanes remain open. Cargo ships move on, unaware of how close they came to chaos. But the balance is shifting. Each clash costs more, risks more, and tests the will of both nations. So here's your choice. If you believe America's stand tonight proves lasting strength, press 1" the comments. If you think China's persistence shows this conflict is only beginning, press 9. And hit subscribe. Because the next confrontation may decide not just who controls the South China Sea, but who shapes the future of global power.